On the day of my divorce, while my mother-in-law basked in the spotlight of congratulatory messages for the ultrasound of Wesley Wick's mistress, I took a different approach. With a cold smile, I shared Wesley's premarital checkup report, a document that exposed the truth behind the facade. The report clearly stated, Wesley Wick, male, diagnosed with congenital azoospermia. I don't want a man who can't have children. Wesley and I met in college and got together after graduation. After graduation, my salary wasn't high, barely enough to make ends meet, so we had to rent a shabby, unfinished apartment. Wesley and I worked at the same company. After work, he would drive me home, and during holidays, he would give me little gifts. If nothing else, he would at least take me out for hamburgers. I grew up in the shadows of neglect, my parents absent, and my childhood devoid of wealth or stability. The only beacon in my turbulent life was my grandmother. As a child, others would say I was a wild child that Grandma picked up. I never believed them. After Grandma passed away, I had no home, so I envied those who did. Because I lacked love growing up, I became increasingly dependent on Wesley. When we were dating, he was gentle and considerate, always taking care of my feelings, never looking down on my family or background. I was young and mistook his cheap kindness for love. When he proposed, he promised to give me a happy and fulfilling family. I was overjoyed and married him. Once we were engaged, Wesley's relatives made their opinions known, snickering behind my back. They called me a wild chicken, trying to be a phoenix, hinting at my questionable origins, and even suggesting I might be carrying some mysterious illness. They insisted on a premarital medical checkup. I took a deep breath and pushed aside my pride, swallowing the sting of their words for Wesley's sake. When the results came out, it turned out that Wesley had congenital azoospermia, meaning we wouldn't be able to have children, and there was no cure for it. I cherished our relationship and loved him deeply, so I chose to keep it a secret to protect his feelings. I wanted to live a good life with him, and I thought that as long as we loved each other, it didn't matter if we couldn't have children. We could always adopt one if we wanted. That was my thinking, but others didn't see it that way. After we got married, my mother-in-law made my life difficult in every possible way. She started by insisting that I quit my job to have a child and be a stay-at-home wife. At first I refused, but Wesley persuaded me, promising that he would earn money to support us while I stayed at home, beautiful and carefree. I believed his sweet words, quit my job, and became a full-time housewife. But what awaited me after marriage was endless grievances and heartache. Every morning, I woke up to cook, and after cooking, I would wash clothes, mop the floor, and wash the dishes after eating. After cleaning up, just as I was about to rest, my mother-in-law would throw a pile of underwear at me. This wasn't the first time she had asked me to wash her undergarments. With a weary sigh, I looked at her and said, Mom, undergarments and other personal clothing are meant to be washed by the wearer. It's not my place to handle such private matters. She was busy texting someone to come over and play mahjong, and looked up at me with a glare. If I tell you to wash it, then wash it. Where do you get so much nonsense? I refused. I threw the basin into the bathroom and went back to my room to change the bedsheets. My mother-in-law started cursing loudly in the living room. So now you think you're tough? Did we marry you to treat you like a queen? Look in the mirror. Do you really think you're goddess? Get out here and wash those clothes or I'll call my son to teach you a lesson. I couldn't take it anymore. I married into your family but I wasn't sold to you. I didn't take a penny of dowry when I married. If you want a maid, hire one. I slammed the door and cried on the bed. My mother-in-law called Wesley, playing the victim. When he came home he dragged me out of bed. Diana, apologize to Mom. Every time we argued, he always sided with his mother. Why should I apologize? What did I do wrong? She bullies me, and you want me to apologize? I wiped away my tears and turned away from him. My mother-in-law also came into the room, her words biting. I told you not to marry her, and look, it hasn't been long, and she's already trying to dominate me. Wesley pushed her out of the room. All right, Mom, enough, I'll talk to her. He handed me a tissue to wipe my tears. Diana, Mom is old, and she has a heart condition. You're so magnanimous, you should be more accommodating, right? Just go and make peace with her. He knew I was soft-hearted and wouldn't hold a grudge against his mother, so he coaxed me into apologizing. But little did he know, the more I let it slide, the more she bullied me. One night my period came, and I stained the bed and my pajamas. I got up, took off my pajamas, and left them in the bathroom, thinking I'd wash them the next day since it was so late. The next morning, I was woken up by my mother-in-law yelling. She didn't even knock before barging in and throwing the bedsheets at me. Get up and wash this. Isn't it disgusting? I was in pain, Mom. My stomach hurts. Let me rest for a bit, and I'll wash it later. She went berserk and dragged me out of bed. How dare you say your stomach hurts? It's been so long, and you still haven't gotten pregnant. The blanket was yanked off, and I was left with nothing to wear. I covered my chest and picked up the blanket, feeling like my dignity had been trampled on. My tone grew cold. I'm going to get dressed and wash the sheets. Please leave. Luckily, her phone rang, saving us from a full-blown argument. My mother-in-law had arranged another mahjong game with her relatives. As I hung clothes on the balcony, I overheard her relatives gossiping inside. Your daughter-in-law still hasn't gotten pregnant? Who knows? No sign of it yet. Could she be infertile? Exactly. My daughter got pregnant right after getting married, and now the baby's already over a year old. Maybe you should try some folk remedies. My mother-in-law glanced at me with a sneer. I bet she's just a chicken that can't lay eggs. What kind of mother-in-law would joke about her daughter-in-law like this? I couldn't stand listening any longer. I called Wesley several times, but he didn't pick up. When he got home, his mother immediately pulled him aside to whisper. When he came back to our room, I wanted to talk to him, but he was busy texting on his phone. I tried to grab his phone, and he snapped at me. Stop making trouble. I'm busy with work. I was taken aback. What work do you have to do at home? If I don't work, what will you eat and drink? All the money in this house comes from my hard work. All you do is spend money. You can't even take care of my mom. I couldn't believe what he was saying. What money have I spent? Apart from groceries and living expenses, what have I used? Your mom bullies me every day, and you say I haven't taken care of her. I'm tired. I don't want to argue. He turned away to sleep. I cried silently. I couldn't sleep the whole night. After that, I stopped complaining to Wesley about his mother. There was no point. He would never take my side. I endured for over 6 months just to keep a semblance of a home. But Wesley's frequent late returns from work made me suspicious. He would always come home and immediately grab his phone, sometimes with a doting smile, which he would quickly hide if I noticed. One day, I followed Wesley in a taxi. He went to a high-end residential area where I couldn't get in, so I waited downstairs. After a while, Wesley came out with a woman whose belly was slightly swollen. They got into a car, and I hurriedly followed them to a hospital. When they got out, I saw the woman's face clearly. It was his cousin, Sally Roon. I didn't understand why she needed her cousin to accompany her for a prenatal checkup. Just as I was about to follow them into the hospital, my phone rang. It was the police station. Hello, is this Diana Helm? Yes, this is she. How can I help you? Well, earlier, a blood test you had matched with a missing girl's parents at a 99% rate. Could you come in when you have time to discuss this? I was shocked and forgot all about Wesley and Sally. I rushed to the police station. Before Grandma passed away, she told me that we were not related by blood, and that she had found me on her way back from the city after buying medicine. She was all alone, so she brought me back. Grandma also gave me a pendant that was around my neck when she found me, saying it was the proof to reunite with my biological parents. If these people were indeed my real parents, they would recognize this pendant. At the police station, I handed over the pendant and explained the situation. Soon, a luxury car pulled up, and a plump, well-dressed woman got out. When she saw the pendant, she cried and hugged me tightly. Isabel, I'm your mother, my dear Isabel. It turned out my real name was Isabel Gade. My eyes welled up and I hugged her tightly. Then a middle-aged man got out of the car, and I was stunned. It was Frank Gade, the CEO of the company where Wesley worked. I couldn't believe I was the long-lost daughter of the Gade family. My mother explained that I had wandered off as a child and never returned. They had searched for me for years, but never found me. Grandma and I had always lived in the countryside, where information was scarce, so it was difficult to locate me. After Grandma passed, I came to the city to finish college while working part-time. My biological parents wanted to take me home, but I told them I was married and needed to share the good news with my husband and bring him along. My mother agreed, gave me their contact information, and sent me back to the neighborhood. I walked home, excited to give Wesley a surprise. But as soon as I reached the door, I heard a conversation that tore my heart apart. Sign this agreement immediately. My mother-in-law's voice came from inside. Mom, how do I explain this to her? I'm afraid she'll cling to me. My mother-in-law cursed. What are you afraid of? You're the only male heir of the Wick family, and we're counting on you to carry on the family line. Besides, you've already gotten Sally pregnant. Are you not going to give her a proper status? That's when I realized there was another woman crying inside. No wonder Wesley had been sneaking around lately. He was hiding an affair, and the mistress was his cousin. I clearly remembered that Wesley was infertile, so there was no way he could have gotten her pregnant. I quickly went back to the hospital, pulled up the medical records, and confirmed with the doctor that his condition was congenital and incurable. My mother-in-law called me, telling me to come home immediately because there was something to discuss. I put the medical report in my bag, feeling a mix of emotions. This was getting more and more interesting.